welcome back to Pokemon episode summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 325, Maxed Out. The episode begins with Ash and the gang coming up across a really remote Pokemon Center that was in the middle of the forest across a lake. May wanted to stay outside because she thought the lake was beautiful and very big, but Brock led everyone inside, really wanting to meet the Nurse Joy there, as he called out for her the second that they all entered. Joy came out and greeted Ash and the gang as Brock introduced himself and tried to express his love towards Nurse Joy by pulling out a bouquet of roses to give to her and flirted with her as well. May and Max were annoyed by Brock's flirting, claiming that Brock just would never give up. Brock admitted that this was true, and stated to Nurse Joy that he would track the coldest snow and hottest deserts just to find her, or any of her other siblings, if she wouldn't take him. Making Max sigh in annoyance, because even he knew that if you were trying to impress someone, then you shouldn't immediately say that you would go after their goddamn siblings. I think Brock should have known this by now. Just then, May noticed a bright flash of light come from her bag, and was shocked to see Skitty forcibly pop out of its Pokeball, shaking its tail, and it smiles at May, trying to get her attention, although its own attention is then grabbed by its tail when it notices it and begins to chase it. And this chasing becomes so wild that Ash and the gang were forced to dodge the Skitty as it was now spinning around rapidly around the entire Pokemon Center trying to catch its tail. It speeds past Nurse Joy, and Ash and the gang expected Nurse Joy to get angry at something like this happening inside her center, but even as Skitty creates a wind since it was running so fast, making Nurse Joy almost fall back, she simply laughs at how cute Skitty was. May agreed that Skitty was cute, but admitted that Skitty could be a real handful, and she just fucking caught it not too long ago as well. Seeing how Nurse Joy was okay with Skitty though, Ash and the gang ran around chasing after Skitty, trying to stop it, creating a ruckus, which a boy who was approaching the Pokemon Center from outside could hear since it was so loud. This boy appeared to be Max's fucking doppelganger. Anyways, back inside the center. Ash and the gang realized that running around to catch Skitty wasn't working, so they all tried different approaches. Brock simply tried to get Skitty to come to him, calling for it, and Skitty did come to him, but it didn't stop spinning after its tail, even when it was in his hands, and therefore it ended up smashing him straight in the face. As for May's approach, she pulled out a cattail toy to get Skitty's attention, but unfortunately, she accidentally puts the fuzzy part of the cattail up to her face, and it makes her sneeze, also making her drop the cattail right into Max's hands, so Max decided to try using it instead. And unlike May, Max was actually able to calm Skitty down as he used the cattail properly, allowing everyone to breathe a sigh of relief that Skitty's rampage was now over. Just then, though, the boy that looked like Max from earlier came inside the center and yelled at Ash and the gang for making a whole bunch of fucking noise and asked them to keep the noise down. Ash and the gang apologized to the boy and promised to keep the noise down from now on, although the boy simply just accuses them of sucking up to it now and insults Ash and the gang for not being able to handle Skitty for a long time, since it took them like fucking over 10 minutes, stating that they clearly weren't skilled trainers, since only skilled trainers could handle energetic Pokemon like Skitty. Max begins to argue with his doppelganger, stating that he was already aware that only skilled trainers could calm hyper Pokemon such as Skitty, and didn't need someone to tell him that, and argued that Ash, May, and Brock were good fucking trainers and shit. This pisses the Max doppelganger off, as he proceeds to argue back with Max, telling them that he and his friends were rude and they should just get out and shit. And the argument was getting pretty bad, but then Nurse Joy jumped in and told both sides to calm down and told Max to stop, noting that he was being the rudest one. Max was extremely surprised by this, as he hadn't told Nurse Joy his name yet, so she should have had no way to know it, right? But then, when Max asked Nurse Joy how she knew his name, Nurse Joy revealed that the other kid's name was also Max. So not only were they doppelgangers, but they had the same name as well. Damn, the Pokemon writers really were on some fucking Zaza this episode, holy shit. And hell, the only actual difference between Max and his doppelganger was that his doppelganger was a bit taller. Anyways, the doppelganger immediately orders Max to change his goddamn name, but Max simply asks the same of his doppelganger. This leads to an annoying back-and-forth argument between the two, which Nurse Joy breaks up by jumping in between the two of them, stopping them as they were actually getting into a physical altercation. So, the two Maxes just stared at each other angrily as the doppelganger left the center, probably somewhat embarrassed by his angry outburst. After the doppelganger had angrily left, Max angrily roared for the doppelganger to come back and face him, calling him a coward for leaving, but Nurse Joy tells him to let it go, requesting that he calm down and go easy on the other Max, saying that they both liked Pokemon, and the doppelganger apparently came to the Pokemon Center often to play with them, and stated that he was probably just having a bad day today or some shit. Who knows with kids, right? Anyways, Nurse Joy then changed the subject of her conversation with Max, complimenting him on his knowledge of Pokemon, and being able to calm down Skitty and all that, stating he must have been very knowledgeable to be able to calm down Skitty. Brock got a little jealous at Nurse Joy complimenting Max, and jumped in, exclaiming that he was knowledgeable about Pokemon as well. Brock feared that this would only put him even with Max, so he decided to make a promise to Nurse Joy to impress her, promising that he would do everything in his power to get Max and his doppelganger to make up so that no more drama would come to a Pokemon Center. Max adamantly refused to have anything to do with the Max doppelganger, stating he would never make up with him. But Brock still assured Nurse Joy that he would do everything in his power to make this relationship between the two Maxes happen. Nurse Joy was understandably doubtful, so she wished Brock good luck with this, though requested that if Brock and Max were both so knowledgeable, that for right now, while the other Max was still calming down and shit, Brock and Max help her with some of the Pokemon in the Pokemon Center, and Brock and Max agreed to this. Meanwhile, Max's doppelganger had went out to the edge of a cliff which overlooked the beautiful lake, trying to calm himself down and think about how he had acted. Not too far from this cliff, James was currently sleeping in a sleeping bag next to Meowth and Jessie, in their own sleeping bags, with James's being orange, Meowth's being blue, and Jessie's being purple. Suddenly, an alarm clock that James had set went off, waking up all three of the Team Rocket members. James looks to see what time it is, and he gets bitchy when he sees that it was noon, complaining that it was now too late for him to start his day as he wanted to. Jesse and Meowth were bitchy that they were even woken up by an alarm clock, as they never set one, and asked James why they had set a clock today, leaving James to explain that the alarm was supposed to wake him up so that he could get his morning routine done, which he believed had to be done, otherwise his life would be out of whack, before going to the Pokemon Center to steal Pikachu, presumably having overheard how Ash and the gang were going in there the following night while they were walking to it. Who knows? Anyways, Jesse questioned why James had to even do a goddamn morning routine in the first place, suggesting that they just head out to get Pikachu now. James agreed, knowing that they had to get Pikachu eventually, and he was excited to go, but he stated that first he had to wash his face at least, even if he didn't do a full-on morning routine. Meowth admitted that he had to do a face wash as well, so the two of them did so by getting a tiny bowl of water that they somehow had, even though they rarely had any supplies, and washed their faces. Now that James was refreshed, he felt more confident and happy than ever, ready to capture Pikachu, declaring that today would be their day. Jesse, however, was not very excited, reminding James that they always failed to capture Pikachu every goddamn day, and today likely wouldn't be any different, and this made James depressed as he sat on a rock and began to pout, complaining about how bad their lives were, stating how they were always short on food and made no progress whatsoever. However, James got a sudden burst of determination, getting up off the rock, and stating he would prove he was great by capturing Pikachu, and he would therefore end Team Rocket's unlucky streak. And goes on and on about how today was finally going to be their day to capture Pikachu and all that shit. But he then realized that while he was yapping his ass off, doing his little monologue there, Jesse and Meowth had gotten bored and began to set off getting some lunch somewhere. This made James depressed as he sat back on the stump momentarily to complain about his life. However, he soon just gets up and folds his, Meowth's, and Jesse's sleeping bags and then joins them. Meanwhile, while Brock and Max were still helping Nurse Joy with some of the Pokemon in the center, May decided to go relax by standing on a rock and finally get to look out on the beautiful lake like she wanted to at the beginning. Although she was interrupted when Max had finished his duties in the center and suggested that May help Nurse Joy like he had. This led May to jump down from a rock and go up to Max, saying that she would not help Nurse Joy. She was too busy relaxing, and Max gets pissed off at this, so the two of them begin to argue, although the argument quickly comes to an end when Max remembers arguing with his doppelganger, and just the thought of his doppelganger pisses him off even more, complaining about how his doppelganger had the gall to have the same name as him. May advises Max to just fucking forget about that shit already, when suddenly they notice a surskit gliding on the water, which Max was able to recognize, even as it went right past them. May didn't recognize it though, so she scanned it with her Pokedex to learn more about it. After May and Max watch the surskit for a little bit, it soon rounds a corner and sees Max's doppelganger. Max's doppelganger sees it as well, and he goes down from the cliff he was on, greeting it, eager to meet it and play with it, coming down the cliff as fast as possible. May and Max go around the corner since May wanted to see the surskit some more, although Max gets mad when he sees his doppelganger. Although this just inspires May to pull Max along with her so that 1, she could get closer to the surskit, and 2, so that Max and his doppelganger could make up and become friends, stating that since they both really loved Pokemon and knew a lot about him, they would actually be perfect friends. Max disagreed, but May didn't care, as she simply just continued to drag Max by the arm toward the surskit and his doppelganger. Even when May applies more force though, Max still refuses. Although May asks if Max wanted to at least see the surskit more up close, and since Max wanted to see surskit, he agreed to go with May. As soon as Max's doppelganger sees Max approaching while he was greeting the surskit, Max's doppelganger gets angry, demanding Max to beat it, leaving Max to argue back that he wanted to stay. This, of course, caused another huge argument to start, but May quickly ended the argument, suggesting that since Max and his doppelganger both loved Pokemon, they should just be friends and bond over this, as opposed to bickering. Max's doppelganger angrily refuses, leading May to try and change his mind, mentioning a whole bunch of Pokemon that Max liked, and asking if his doppelganger liked these as well. When this didn't work, May tried to gas the doppelganger up, stating that she was sure he was probably super experienced with Pokemon and had probably caught a whole bunch of others, and also asked him if Surskit happened to be his favorite Pokemon, and that's why he wanted to go see it so bad. While May was keeping the other Max occupied by talking to him, Max took the opportunity to run past May and the other Max towards Surskit to pet it, but this angers his doppelganger, who notices and slaps Max's hand away, demanding him to leave the area immediately and go find his own Pokemon instead of trying to pet what he claimed was his Surskit, even though he didn't even own it. This, of course, leads to yet another argument, with both Maxes demanding each other to leave, although May then jumps in again and tells them to stop fighting. Although while trying to end the argument, she simply just calls them both Max, leading both to ask who she was talking about, believing that she was taking one side of the argument. May tries to explain, but she just ends up confusing herself, as she continues to refer to both of them as Max. It's then that Brock shows up, being done his duties in the Pokemon Center, and Ash shows up as well, and the two of them saw the argument and asked what was going on, questioning why they were still arguing, calling it stupid to see an argument continue for this long. Max's doppelganger gets angry upon seemingly being called stupid, according to him, so he insults Ash and Brock, which just makes Max angry, as he starts to yell at his doppelganger, and the argument continues as Team Rocket watches what was going on from across the lake with binoculars, hiding in some bushes. Having decided to go get Pikachu after they managed to find some lunch, Jesse and James were laughing in amusement at Max's predicament and the arguments that he was constantly having, although Meowth took notice of Surskit and suggested that they steal it and give it to Giovanni. Jesse questioned why Giovanni would want a Surskit of all Pokemon, as Meowth then had a boss fantasy, as he explained to them that Giovanni would wake up every morning stressed due to the stresses that came with being the boss of Team Rocket. So he would go to the balcony to have his morning coffee and have some sunshine on his face. But on days where there would be no sunshine, he would see Surskit by his pool outside his mansion, cheering him up. Adding that Surskit could also cheer Giovanni up on days where there was sun as well, because, a Pokemon just standing out by your pool, smiling at you, would cheer you up no matter what. Jesse and James were convinced, having this boss fantasy as well, although they were even more convinced to go capture the Surskit for Giovanni, when Meowth of course mentioned that Giovanni would be so happy with them that he would give them a big promotion. So Team Rocket cheered, and Wobbuffet popped out of its Pokeball as they all decided to go capture the Surskit. Meanwhile, Max and his doppelganger were still arguing when Brock got the idea to break up the argument by having the two Maxes focus on something else that he knew they would both be interested in, being all of their Pokemon, as he proposed that he, May, and Ash send out all their Pokemon for both of the Maxes to marvel at and play with. Ash and May agreed with this, wanting to end the argument, as Ash, May, and Brock sent out all their Mons. Well, most of their Mons, because Brock only sent out his Fortress and Lotad, not his Mudkip. May sent out her Torchic, Skitty, and Beautyfly, but Ash only sent out his Trico and Tailo, along with Pikachu, obviously. He didn't send out his Corphish for some reason. Regardless, the two Maxes instantly stop arguing, with Max's doppelganger surprised to see so many Pokemon, and impressed by all of them. Max brags that he gets to see all these Pokemon every day, and adds that his father was a gym leader. Max, too, would likely get pissed off at this normally, and it would cause another argument, because Max was trying to show him up. But then, Max revealed that he actually wasn't trying to show his doppelganger up this time, as he was only talking about Ash and the gang's Pokemon and his father being a gym leader, because he really wanted his own Pokemon, and he wanted to become a gym leader, and Max's doppelganger found this interesting, and was impressed by Max's drive. May then realized that she hadn't introduced her Skitty formally to a whole bunch of the Pokemon yet, so she did so. Although, when she had Skitty greet Trico and Pikachu, and also requested Skitty to do a little dancing to show off to Pikachu and Trico, and instructing Pikachu and Trico to watch intently, Skitty just began to chase its tail around again. May gets a bit mad at this, not wanting Skitty to do this tail-chasing bullshit again, but Ash reminded her to use the cattail, but just as May pulled it out, she saw that Skitty had gotten so tired from chasing around its tail that she climbed up on a rock and fell asleep on it already. Both Maxes crowd around it, particularly interested by it, as Max's doppelganger compliments that Skitty had a very peculiar behavior, and was amazed how it got tired after only chasing around its tail for a few seconds. Brock laughed, agreeing that Skitty had a peculiar behavior, also commenting that Skitty always found a way to lighten the mood because it was so ridiculous. Meanwhile, Team Rocket was spying on Ash and the gang from some bushes, seeing all of the Mons out. And Jesse and Meowth instantly recognized Skitty, with Meowth still in love with it, and Jesse getting furious over May catching it, as Jesse still wanted it. Although James reminded Jesse to focus on the goddamn plan, reminding Meowth as well, calling the plan Operation Surskit Steal, as they leaped out of a nearby bush, startling Ash and the gang. Ash demanded to know what Team Rocket was here for this time, telling Pikachu to get behind him and protect itself, thinking that Team Rocket would obviously be coming for him, as usual, but Team Rocket declares that today all they were coming for was the Surskit. Team Rocket then does their motto while holding footballs, and they get close to Surskit while dodging Ash and the gang by throwing footballs at them to deflect Ash and the gang away from them, with Jesse and James each having their own ball. As Jesse approaches Surskit, she dodges Brock, who misses her and falls on the ground, and then she almost hits May with a football, knocking her out almost, and Wobbuffet trails behind. Thankfully, Ash tells Trico to use Quick Attack on Team Rocket, but Jesse stops the attack by throwing Trico the football, surprising and confusing it, although Jesse was pleased by this, as this allowed her to continue to get closer to Surskit, with Trico unable to do anything. Ash then instructed Pikachu to use Thunderbolt, but Meowth suddenly pulls out an umbrella and opens it over top of him, Jesse, and James to deflect the electricity, since the umbrella conducted it, allowing Team Rocket to safely make their way up to Surskit. But right as they did, Skitty had woken up and became aware of its surroundings. The first thing Skitty took notice of was Jesse's hair, and it immediately fell in love with it, viewing it as a chew toy, as she jumped up to Team Rocket while they were approaching Surskit, and grabbed onto Jesse's hair. Jessie was so terrified by this that she stopped running and screamed, extremely sad that her beautiful hair was all messed up now and damaged thanks to Skitty chewing on it. So she proceeded to try and shake Skitty off, flipping around her hair. At this point, Meowth and James were scared of Jesse's anger as they tried to calm her down, but Skitty flew off of Jesse's hair and hit Meowth and James before falling to the ground. With Skitty now off, Jessie rushes off, crying and holding her hair, immensely sad about it, as James and Meowth followed her. Ash laughs immensely, seeing Jessie suffer, having her hair ruined, while May compliments Skitty on managing to deal with Jessie. However, the happy moment couldn't last for long, because Max then looked around and noticed that Surskit was gone, and informed his doppelganger of this, along with the rest of the gang. Max's doppelganger then comes to the conclusion that Surskit must have run away on shore, not into the water, because he had found watery tracks on the ground, and pointed these out to everyone else. Max's doppelganger then got worried that Surskit would never come back, since it must have left because it felt threatened by Team Rocket, and it didn't know that Team Rocket was actually defeated. Impulsively, Max's doppelganger then rushes off to find Surskit, following the footprints, although May warned the doppelganger to stay back, since he could get lost, although Max told her to let him go. Also commenting that he really respected his doppelganger now, since he saw that he really cared about Surskit, and had a heart after all. He wasn't just a rude bitch. Ash then declared that if anything, they shouldn't call Max's doppelganger back. They should go and help him find Surskit before Team Rocket was able to find it. So Ash and the gang set off and quickly caught up with Max's doppelganger somewhere in the forest. Max's doppelganger asked Ash and the gang what they were doing, with Max announcing that he and his friends had come to help him look for Surskit. Max's doppelganger was shocked, not believing Ash and the gang at first, but Max assured his doppelganger that he was going to help him find the Surskit. Just then, a whole bunch of trees were cleared away in the forest, and it was revealed that this was caused by a giant sledgehammer mech driven by Meowth and James, who, once they dealt with these trees, immediately rode up to Ash and the gang and Max's doppelganger, with the goal of finding and catching Surskit. James and Meowth then laughed evilly, demanding to know from Ash and the gang where Surskit was, although Ash and the gang informed Meowth and James that Team Rocket had actually scared Surskit off, so they didn't have it in their possession anymore either. And James and Meowth just threw all the blame onto Jessie. Though Ash and the gang and Max's doppelganger didn't see Jessie in the Max cockpit, so they asked where she was, leading James and Meowth to call for Jessie, trying to hold back their laughter. When Jessie came out, though, with her ridiculous hairstyle, thanks to Skitty, James and Meowth couldn't help but hold their laughter, nor could Ash and the gang, due to how ridiculous it looked. With May managing to insult Jessie through her laughter, saying that her hair looked like the end of a duster, or a dust mop. As Ash and the gang and Max's doppelganger were enjoying this now lighthearted mood that had washed over the scene, thanks to Jessie's ridiculous hair, Jessie got extremely mad at all the laughter as she activated the mech, and went so crazy with anger that she started attacking Ash and the gang and Max's doppelganger with the mech's giant sledgehammer. James and Meowth were freaked out by Jessie's craziness as they tried to calm her down, but Jessie argued that she was too insulted by what everyone was doing, laughing at her hair, and continued to drop the hammer down near Ash and the gang and Pikachu as they all ran away, just in time before they were crushed. Although Jessie simply continued after them in the mech with James and Meowth. Eventually, Team Rocket ends up chasing Ash and the gang and Max's doppelganger to the edge of a cliff, and Jessie brings the sledgehammer down on them, breaking off a part of the cliff, causing Ash and the gang and Max's doppelganger to go flying off of the cliff. And they also get separated, with Ash, Pikachu, and Brock in one direction, and May, Max, and Max's doppelganger in another direction. May and Max ended up landing in a tree, whereas Max's doppelganger landed on the soft dirt below, so actually, he had less of a fall. Max's doppelganger then spotted Max and May and told them to come down from the tree. It took a bit, but May and Max managed to descend down from the tree, with May descending first, and complaining about how Team Rocket always caused trouble that resulted in shit like this. Max then suggested that they should all work together to find Surskit, and his doppelganger agreed, stating that he knew his way around the forest quite well, so he should be able to locate Surskit's footprints again. As Max, May, and Max's doppelganger continued on looking for Surskit, May and Max became confused at something Max's doppelganger said, which was that Surskit wouldn't have been captured if Max's doppelganger could have just joined up with him before Max showed up and let him become his new Pokemon, so that he could have went on a journey with it already and stopped Surskit from being captured by Team Rocket. May and Max were confused by this because they didn't see how the two were related, but Max's doppelganger clarified that he was about to try and throw a Pokeball at the Surskit to catch it, because he thought that it'd be really fun to travel with the Surskit, but then everything happened. Meanwhile, as for Ash, Brock, and Pikachu, they managed to climb up to the cliff that they had fallen off of, to the still solid part of it, and realized that they had been separated from Max, his doppelganger, and May, so Ash sent out his Tailo to do an aerial search for them. While Tailo was searching in the air, Brock suggested that he, Ash, and Pikachu should search around for Surskit, since that was presumably where May, Max, and Max's doppelganger would be searching, and Ash agreed with this, and him, Brock, and Pikachu determinedly ran off to try and find Surskit. Meanwhile, Jessie was going through the woods at this point, threatening to slam the hammer down, and calling for Ash and the gang to show themselves, knowing that they were in the forest somewhere, leaving Meowth and James terrified at how crazy Jessie was, as she threatened to fucking murder Ash and the gang, and they rarely did that. Meanwhile, as Max, his doppelganger, and May were searching for Surskit, they decided to take a break by resting on a rock. While taking a break, Max asked his doppelganger if he was already a Pokemon trainer, with Max's doppelganger confirming that he wasn't yet, but it was his ultimate dream to become one, adding that that was why he felt the need to come into the Pokemon Center and rub it in Max's face, his knowledge about Skitty, because basically, before he understood that Skitty was May's Mon, he actually thought that Skitty was Max's Mon instead, so he wanted to try and show him up and prove that he knew more than a real trainer to try and prove himself. And admitted that he got kind of mad when Max said that he already knew all this information, because he didn't have the chance to try and explain this information that he thought was pretty interesting. And Max admitted that he wasn't trying to genuinely stop his doppelganger from talking about Skitty, he just wanted to prove himself as well, and prove that he didn't need to be told information that he already knew. Basically, both Maxes saw that they were both just trying to prove themselves as worthy of being Pokemon trainers. Max's doppelganger then remembers all of Ash, Brock, and May's Pokemon from earlier, and remarks how he was indeed jealous that Max did get to travel around, unlike him, and he got to meet a whole bunch of really interesting Pokemon. Since Max's doppelganger had confessed everything, Max confessed that he was actually jealous of his doppelganger for being so close with the Surskit, unlike him, since he wanted the Surskit. However, Max then clarified that he saw how much the Surskit really liked his doppelganger, so he was going to let his doppelganger train Surskit, suggesting that the doppelganger should go through with this like he was going to if they could find Surskit, and the doppelganger promised that he would. With that, Max and his doppelganger had revealed their reasoning for their hatred for each other, and now that they had admitted that stuff, they were ready to finally put all of it behind them and become friends. May was glad, remarking that it was about time, as she also approved of Max's doppelganger training Sir Skid, admitting to him that she knew from experience now that it was awesomely fun to train Pokemon. Suddenly, May spotted Team Rocket's mech in the distance and declared that she, Max, and Max's doppelganger should get on the move so that they could find Surskit before Team Rocket did. So, May, Max, and his doppelganger did exactly this, running off. Meanwhile, Ash, Brock, and Pikachu were calling out for May, Max, and Max's doppelganger deep in the woods, in some bushes, with Pikachu sitting atop a rock trying to see them, although it couldn't spot them. Anyways, back with May, Max, and Max's doppelganger. Max's doppelganger led May and Max to a nearby river in the forest, and they called out for Surskit, trying to search for it, when suddenly Team Rocket arrived as their mech crashed through the trees, and Jessie angrily chased after Max, May, and Max's doppelganger, threatening to crush them as they ran off. As they ran, Max's doppelganger said that he knew of a small pond up ahead, so they kept running and eventually made it to the open area with the pond, and they spotted Surskit inside. May, Max, and especially Max's doppelganger were overjoyed to see Surskit, as Max's doppelganger leaped into the pond and hugged Surskit. Just then, though, May and Max took notice of a second pond above the first one. Just after this seemingly random detail, though, even though I promise you it's not random, Team Rocket showed up, crashing through the bushes, making May scream in fear, as Jessie threatened to completely murder Max's doppelganger, and May, with even Meowth and James admitting that that was a little extreme. Wow, thanks for having the decency to be against murder, James and Meowth. That is asking so much, I'm sure. Anyways, after some convincing from Meowth and James, Jessie finally calmed down a bit, and instead of crushing May, Max, and Max's doppelganger, decided to send out her Survivor to instead just retrieve the Surskit. And James then decided to send out his Cacnea to assist, although, of course, his Cacnea hugged him first, prickling him. May decided to send out one of her Pokemon to battle against Cacnea and Survivor to stop them, but both Maxes jumped in front of her and told her to stop, saying that they wanted to do something to protect the Surskit themselves, asking that May let them handle the situation, stating that they would even take hits for Surskit if necessary. Jessie laughed at both Maxes, calling them foolish, and assuring them that they would be crushed by her Viper, as she told it to use Poison Tail, right as Tailo flew above them, and noticed them, and flew back to alert Ash and Brock. Anyways, right before the Poison Tail from Viper hit, both Maxes and May were able to leap away to dodge the attack. Cacnea then uses Pin Missile, trying to hit Surskit to weaken it, but Surskit dodges by jumping into the water, and using agility. So, Jessie just has Viper fishing out of the water by hitting it with Poison Tail, making May, Max, and Max's doppelganger worried about Surskit's condition, as Jessie bragged about how powerful her Survivor was, and how she would have Surskit at any moment, but Meowth reminded Jessie not to get cocky, saying that Surskit wasn't technically theirs yet, which just made Jessie angry, as she yelled at Meowth. James then told Cacnea to use a Needle Arm to weaken the Surskit even more. Cacnea went into the water to do so, and James discovered that as soon as Cacnea went into the water, it would sink to the bottom, since it couldn't swim. So James, disappointedly not wanting his Cacnea to die, recalled his Cacnea. Jessie didn't care, though, as she knew that she could weaken Surskit enough by just having Survivor use another Poison Tail, which made everyone extremely worried, as they figured that Surskit would be knocked out. But suddenly, Max got an idea, as he had told his doppelganger to have Surskit use an attack to destroy the bedrock separating the two ponds. See, I told you the two ponds would come in handy. Basically, Max thought that if both ponds became one, then Surskit could have an advantage. So, Surskit dodged the Poison Tail attack, and Max's doppelganger told it to use Water Pulse on the bedrock, causing the bedrock to break. As a result of the destroyed rock, the water from the second pond leaks into the first pond, causing it to overflow and washing Viper away, and also washing Team Rocket and their mech away, and into the water, leaving May and both Maxes to celebrate, thinking that Team Rocket was gone, as Max's doppelganger congratulated Surskit. But Jessie was not done yet, as she emerged from the water, looking like a zombie due to how bad her hair looked, and how soaked it was. James, Meowth, and Viper were already scared of this, but they got even more scared, as Jessie then roared in anger, demanding Surskit, and continued to scream, Surskit, 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 as she approached Max's doppelganger to get it from him. With James, Meowth, and Viper simply watching, cowering in fear, hanging on to the remains of the mech to make sure they didn't drown, as Jessie slowly made it to Max's doppelganger, and eventually did grab it, but Max's doppelganger still held on, forcing Jessie and the doppelganger to play tug-of-war, and it seemed as though Jessie was losing, since Max and May grabbed onto Surskit as well, trying to help Max's doppelganger. Miraculously, though, Jessie still refused to let go, so May quickly thought of an idea, as she sent out her Skitty and had to use Double Slap on Jessie, causing her to lose grip on Surskit and send her falling back into the water. Right in front of the mech, where James, Meowth, and Viper were, who freaked out as they then saw Ash, Pikachu, Brock, and Tailo approaching. Upon seeing this, Jessie became determined to steal Pikachu if she couldn't get Surskit, not wanting to lose, as she quickly got back up in the water and told Viper to attack with a Poison Tail. But before Viper could do this, Ash had Pikachu use Thunderbolt on Team Rocket, although just in time, Meowth opened the umbrella again to deflect the electricity. However, as Team Rocket were momentarily laughing, Max's doppelganger catches Team Rocket off guard, as he has Surskit use a Bubble Beam on them, which coincidentally knocks the umbrella out of Meowth's hand, so Pikachu could use Thunderbolt for a second time, and this time it actually hit, destroying Team Rocket's mech and sending them blasting off. Ash, Brock, May, and Max all thank Max's doppelganger, and he just smiled, admitting that he and Surskit couldn't have gotten as far as they did without Max's help, saying that he and Max made a really good team working together with Surskit. And Max agreed, officially declaring the doppelganger as his friend, and the doppelganger declared Max as his friend, leaving Ash shocked that the two Maxes had actually become friends now. Leaving both Maxes to laugh at Ash's shocked face as Max's doppelganger thanks his new friend Surskit, officially declaring it as his own. May then hugs Skitty while Max and his doppelganger pet Surskit, because even though Max officially accepted Surskit as his doppelgangers, he still felt close to it as well. Later, Ash and the gang and Max's doppelganger returned to the Pokemon Center where Nurse Joy was waiting outside, where Max's doppelganger revealed his plans to go on a journey with Surskit and train it hard, promising to battle Max one day when he became a trainer. Max promised back to find a Pokemon just like his doppelganger Surskit, one that was just as awesome, so that it could make the battle as awesome as possible. Both Maxes complimented each other on their dreams, and they both promised that they would make them happen as they shook hands, awaiting their battle that would happen in the future. The episode then ends with Ash and the gang saying goodbye to Nurse Joy and Max's doppelganger as they leave the Pokemon Center and head towards Fall Arbor Town.